It is everyone's favorite segment, Soundbite. In case you forget what Soundbite is, which by now you really shouldn't. It's the best one on the show. But Soundbite is where Steve and I react to different players, sports personalities, whoever it may be. If they say something interesting in a post-game interview or podcast, just they say something or do something that we think is interesting and want to talk about, we listen. So, for today's Soundbite, we have Stephen A. Smith appearing on Shannon Sharpe's podcast, Club Shay Shay, discussing who is better all time, Dwight Howard or Anthony Davis, which at one point in time, if maybe a year ago, was going around a little bit, but let's take a look at Stephen A. and Shannon Sharpe.
Stan Van Gundy said, you can't make a case to say as Anthony Davis' career has been better than Dwight Howard's. What's your take on that?
I kind of agree. Anthony Davis was a prolific scorer, but at the end of the day, he wasn't relevant until he arrived to the Lakers with LeBron.
Correct.
Dwight Howard was a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, extraordinary shot blocker and eraser. Was never the offensive player that Anthony Davis was, but certainly was just as impactful and more successful because he was on a squad that Anthony Davis won a championship with as a reserve.
Right.
Which means he's got a ring too.
Right.
The impact of your career is not greater than that of Dwight Howard.
Dwight Howard took a team to the NBA Finals.
Yes, he did.
In his prime, he's one of the 5 best players in the NBA.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree. I can say Anthony Davis is a better talent.
Yes.
But it also highlights what you must not be doing.
Right.
Because a lesser talent that is Dwight Howard was more impactful than you were.
Right.
So there you have it. Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe talking about Dwight Howard and Anthony Davis's careers and their impacts on the game. Stephen A. Smith says some nonsensical things, and his arguments are not that great to me. Steve, we have some very strong opinions on this topic. You're going to lead us off for this segment. Take it away, my friend.
What makes this difficult for me is, to me, I think it depends what you value more out of a center. Because if you value a big who's going to be able to give you some scoring, going to be able to clean the glass all day long, and also defend the rim, then when you look at the accolades and you look at the numbers, most casual NBA fans would think, oh, well, then you take Dwight Howard. On the other side, if you're looking for a big man who's going to be a scorer, then most people would say Anthony Davis. But when you actually crunch the numbers, Anthony Davis has 3 more seasons of averaging 2 blocks a game. And you can say, okay, well, Dwight Howard has 3 consecutive Defensive Player of the Years from 2009, 10, and 11. But I would also say that Dwight Howard's regular season numbers are the only ones that have ever really stood out to me. This is hard for me because I think the entire argument, when you're looking at where you rank them all time, I think Anthony Davis is better. I think that he was more impactful, even though he was, Dwight Howard was the best player on a team that went to the finals. Well, good for you. Okay. My thing is that Anthony Davis's impact on his teams has been more, in my opinion, than Dwight Howard. But I want to get your opinion on this, Cam, because to me, when I'm looking at these two players, I think it really kind of does, you have to get deeper into the numbers, because looking at it, just accolades, you would want to hint towards Dwight Howard. But you look at Anthony Davis and how long he was good for, I think that has to matter.
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head at the end when you said that Anthony Davis's impact on his teams was more impactful than Dwight Howard's was. And I have a few different things I want to talk about with these two guys. I think to kind of go over some quick points right here, people forget that, like, Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe both agree that Dwight Howard was a top 5 player in the NBA in his prime. So with Anthony Davis.
Yeah,
people always talk about how Dwight Howard was the best, one of the best defender and the best big man in the league in his prime. So with Anthony Davis. People talk Anthony Davis was one thing that Dwight Howard wasn't in his prime, and that was maybe the best two-way player or two-way big man in the NBA. There was a long period of time with Dwight Howard or Anthony Davis was amongst the top 5 players in the league because of how he impacted both sides of the ball. Whereas Dwight Howard, we only talk about how big and physical and strong he was, and he blocked a lot of shots and grabbed a lot of rebounds and was a good body. Great for him. That doesn't take away from Anthony Davis's peak when he was not getting hurt. Anthony Davis still has a lot of time to do a lot more things in this NBA. The other thing that people forget about Anthony Davis in his prime and his peak, before we had Giannis and Luka and Jokic, there was a question of who's going to be the best player in the NBA when the LeBron, Durant, Steph era leaves. Anthony Davis was the answer to that question. That's who we thought was going to be the next big thing. And I know we don't talk about college when we do these debates, but Anthony Davis's college career, one of the best college players of all time, without a doubt. So I'm going to start off with the regular season Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard stuff, and then Steve, I'm going to go to both of us for the playoff stuff because that's where it gets interesting. So let's start with the regular season. 4 All-NBAs for Anthony Davis to Dwight Howard's 8. Obviously, that's half, but all 4 of Anthony Davis's are first teams. I think that should be noted. 4 all-defensive first teams is Dwight Howard's 5. Not that big of a difference, so I think that's a wash. They had the same number of all-stars, and Anthony Davis in 2017 was the All-Star Game MVP, if that matters to you. They both have, Dwight, they both have a ring. Stephen A. said that washes out. That's garbage. Anthony Davis being the second best player on a finals and Dwight Howard being a role player on a finals team are 2 very different things. So let's get that out of the way. They each have a ring, but Anthony Davis actually has an NBA ring. Anthony Davis has 2 top 5 MVP finishes where he got as close as 3rd in 2018. And for their careers, Anthony Davis averages 24, 10, and 2. Dwight Howard averages 15, 12, and 1. Again, people forget that Anthony Davis was a top 5 player in the league for a large part of his time in the league before he was getting hurt all the time. Dwight Howard, it's fair and not fair to talk about when he was on the Hawks and on the Wizards, like when he was on the Hornets, when he was dying, right? But that matters. We use that for Jordan and LeBron when we're talking about totalities of careers. Anthony Davis has yet to ever hit a point in his career where he was like that. Now, he's at this weird stage right now where he's got to prove some things and stay healthy, but that is entirely different from becoming washed. So they are very close, but Anthony Davis has all this time to do so many more things with his regular season resume. So I think just that right there kind of shows Anthony Davis's edge. And like I said, he has always been a better offensive player to Dwight, where Dwight was just a body. AD maybe just this last season was the best 2-way player in the playoffs after he had not really done anything since 2020. Now, Steve, let's talk about the playoffs.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs?
I'm very excited to talk about this. So,
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So when people look at AD and Dwight Howard, I feel like people look at Dwight Howard the same way that people look at Michael Jordan. And they don't remember his entire, they don't want to remember his entire career. They look at Magic Dwight Howard and they say, that's the Dwight Howard we're talking about.
That's it, yeah.
And I like that you drew that analogy because to me, I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, I think Anthony Davis as the second best player on his finals team, he was more impactful as the second best player than Dwight Howard was as the best player on a finals team.
Well, we're going to get to that. We are very much going to get to that. So, for their careers, right off the bat, Anthony Davis, 26, 11, and 3, only in the playoffs, throwing in 1 steal and 2 blocks. What's Dwight Howard, the mega force, averaging in the playoffs for his career? 15 and 12 with the exact same 1 steal and 2 blocks. You made a point earlier saying that Anthony Davis, as the second best player on a team, was better than Dwight Howard as the best player on his team, okay? So, in the finals with the Magic and the Lakers, I looked at all the finals games, and this was Dwight Howard's best game in that series. He had a 16 points, 21 rebounds, 2 assists, and 9 blocks. They ended up losing that game, and he had a plus-minus of -11 in his best game. In the best game for Anthony Davis's 2020 series, 34 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 blocks with a plus-minus of plus 23 and a W. Let's talk about a closeout game. Dwight Howard having a chance to keep his team alive in the finals and extend the series 11-10.
Yep.
Anthony Davis to win his first NBA Finals in his first NBA Finals. 19-15, 3 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks.
And
as
if you
the
can
second
tell
best
me,
player.
and if you can tell me the center that Dwight Howard had to face when he played the Lakers,
Pau Gasol. Now, we tell you something. He played against Pau Gasol, who is a very good player and a good defender. That's fine. Anthony Davis was playing against Bam Adebayo, who may not seem like they're that similar, but was the best defender in those playoffs. He had held Giannis to the least efficient he had been that entire playoffs, and in my opinion, was snubbed for Defensive Player of the Year that year and put up 34, 9, and 5. And now this is again my favorite part of this argument. I'm so excited to do this. I have a 4-player blind reveal. So these numbers are 4 players in their first finals appearance. These are all big men. Who on that list would you say is the best? Just which one of those guys has the best looking stats? Player C?
Yeah.
Okay. You ready to hear who these other players are?
I have a feeling I know who B is, but
Who's B?
I don't know who A and D are. B's Anthony.
Who's
B looks like Dwight Howard, but
Nope.
it's not Dwight Howard.
B is not Dwight Howard.
All right, go ahead with
A.
Go ahead for me.
A is Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah, that one's not surprising.
Player B is Kevin Garnett. Player C is Anthony Davis. And player D is Dwight Howard. So, just 2 of the 5 greatest power forwards ever. That Anthony Davis has better stats in the finals. I just found 2 of the top 25 players ever. I found that interesting.
Now let me ask a question about that. I want to know if this dilutes it at all. Does the fact that Anthony Davis didn't make a finals until he was already a established superstar kind of skew these numbers a little bit? Or
all of those guys were already pretty much established. I mean, Garnett in 08, Dirk in 06. AD in 20 and Dwight in 09.
Yeah, I think that was like his 4th or 5th year in the league when he went to the finals. So he wasn't like established. But no, I mean, what this shows,
I think it was more telling, I think, for Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard.
Yes.
Yeah.
What this shows me is that Anthony Davis is one of the most slept on bigs. Is he a top 10 center all time?
No.
But neither is
I consider him a power forward. To be fair,
you consider Anthony Davis a power forward.
Yeah,
Okay,
he doesn't.
fair.
He plays center, but he doesn't like it. He was originally
That's
he was
fair.
drafted and played as a power forward for most of his
I
career.
like this. I didn't know these numbers.
Yep. Yeah. So, in conclusion, if anybody tells you that Dwight Howard is better all time than Anthony Davis, you can tell them the sound said they're wrong and they sleep with their dad.
I might punch him.
You should. You probably should. This was a long one, but a good one. I thought we had some good arguments, some good stats.
We had to let the people know, because this isn't the first time. You and me have been talking about this before we saw this video.
We've had this
Steven and
conversation.
Jen. Because I've sent you things before where I'm like, why do people keep saying this? So we just had we had to make sure everyone knew. We had the right, the wrong. Now everyone knows.
You're welcome, America.
Excuse me, I'm talking to America here.
All right.
Listen to the sound. I listen to the sound.